Satnam, Namaste, my name is Nancy Zabaneh. Welcome to my podcast, which aims to present a compassionate perspective on the nature of human pain and suffering. I believe that adversity can lead to opportunity, growth, and expansion. And I also strongly believe that challenges are a call to awaken to something that we have not previously seen. Today we'll be really focusing on radical acceptance and the power of prayer. Prayer is a service. I fundamentally believe that if there were more prayer, there would be less war. While catastrophe is part of the human experience, no matter how hard we try, we cannot keep tragedy or death at bay. The news finds us much, much faster these days. Radical acceptance is the courage to face and accept reality, our current experience, and what is happening now. Acceptance is not passivity. And essentially, radical acceptance is born of two capacities, mindfulness and compassion. Mindfulness is the ability to recognize what's happening inside us right now, particularly naming and observing the emotions that arise. When compassion is employed, there's a quality of open-heartedness about those inner experiences. Tara Brach created the acronym RAIN: recognize, allow, investigate, nurture, comprising the basic steps to follow when it comes to radical acceptance. And those steps can be followed in the moment of feeling distress, or later when there's an opportunity to reflect. Even 1 minute spent using the acronym can make a difference. So, recognize what it is that I'm feeling. Allow the feeling to be whatever it needs to be in the moment. Investigate, which means getting curious about the feeling. Where does it come from? Where does it stem from? And nurture. So sometimes with feeling anxious, for example, the response could be as swift as quickly recognizing and naming the anxiety, allowing the experience to be without judgment or trying to ignore or change it. Investigating, for example, a tightened chest with interest, with attention, with care, and nurturing with self-compassion. The nurturing doesn't need to be elaborate either. Simply putting a hand on the heart in that moment and saying kindly that it's okay can be enough to gently acknowledge. When we reconnect with the caring beneath our emotions, we are better able to take care of ourselves and work with others, empathizing, collaborating, and problem solving in times of need. I'd like to talk a little bit about the power of prayer. So prayer is the science by which we attune the human mind and will to the consciousness and will of the divine. I pray because it's the most direct practice I know for communicating intimately with the divine. Prayer is a way of being and communicating with ourselves and all that is. Prayer is when the mind is one-pointed and the individual is able to talk to infinity, and infinity can talk to the individual. When the individual mind is attuned and pure, the universal mind responds. In reality, there is no separation. It is the mind that generates the gap. Just as the drop of water is contained in the ocean, so the ocean is contained in the drop. When the part reaches out with devotion and connects to the whole accepts the part because it is the same thing. Prayer creates a connection to presence, synchronicity, and to grace. Prayer is the great conveyor belt for spiritual development, a ladder that anyone, wherever they start from, can climb to a closer relationship with the power of divine nourishment, revelation, and inspiration. An attitude of gratitude is also reflected in our prayers. There's no good or bad. Everything is an opportunity for growth, expansion, and getting closer to finishing our job on this earth. Every day we have the opportunity to reflect that gratitude in our prayers. From the moment we wake up until The moment we lie down at night, along with that attitude of gratitude, we can develop the habit of prayer. By continuously linking to the unknown within and without, we further develop self-reliance. How can we be in constant communion with the infinite through prayer? I love what Rumi says on this particular. He said, "You've read where it says that lovers pray constantly. Once a day, once a week, 5 times an hour is not enough. Fish like we are in need of the ocean around us." The answer is simple. Remember our connection to all that is and all that is not in every moment. The root of all illness, of all suffering, is forgetting this. Communicate constantly with the great unknown. Dedicate each of your actions to the source of all, or the greater good, or to a particular saint or deity or spiritual teacher, whether it's Christ or Buddha or Allah or Jehovah or Guru Ram Das. Your actions can also be dedicated to your higher self. Be a living prayer in action. The qualities of devotion, dedication, and surrender can be cultivated and strengthened. When devotion to spirit is constantly in our awareness, we forget about our attachments and dwell in peace. This is its own reward and can displace cravings for food and alcohol and other addictive substances and behaviors. We don't need an external reward when we connect with spirit. The Bhagavad Gita, a classic Hindu text, instructs us on how to bring prayer into action with this passage. Whatever your action, food, or worship, whatever the gift that you give to another, whatever you vow to the work of the Spirit, lay these also as offerings before me. Prayer is a compass that directs the mind towards the Spirit. In many spiritual traditions, prayers have been recommended for different times of the day and different occasions. If we resonate with a particular tradition and its prayers, we can utilize the inspired writings of saints and devotees to develop our own prayerfulness. So how do we pray? Well, if we've not been exposed to prayer in our environments, or if it was forced upon us as children, we may feel uncomfortable with prayer and actually not know where to begin. We all have links to various teachers, guides, and saints, though we may not initially recognize them. Make the connection in your heart to something larger and more powerful than yourself. Imagine you are plugging yourself into a spiritual power, much as you plug in a light to receive energy. The more you link with devotion to this higher power or being, the stronger your prayer will become. Over time, let there be intimacy between you and your spiritual source, and talk regularly to it as you would talk to a close friend who is a good listener. It doesn't matter if you're praying to a particular saint, deity, spirit, or universal consciousness. What matters is that there is reverence and a devoted relationship between you and your unknown. Rumi says it well. "O beloved, take me. Liberate my soul. Fill me with your love and release me from the two worlds. If I set my heart on anything but you, let fire burn me from inside. O beloved, take away what I want. Take away what I do. Take away what I need. Take away everything that takes me from you." So we all have different ways to pray, and there are a few steps that you can consider on a regular basis as you contemplate your relationship with prayer. So firstly, it's important to create a time and space for prayer every day. Secondly, invite opportunities to pray, not just in one part of the day, but throughout your day. You may wish to begin with a gesture. So that could mean placing your hands in a certain mudra, prayer mudra, or at the heart center. It's important to decide on the type of prayer and also decide how you'd like to begin your prayer every time you do it. And I always say to everybody, develop your own personal prayer. because with practice, prayer can transmute anxiety, anger, worry, and fear. Use it when you have a craving or when you feel overwhelmed with emotion. Decide what your prayer looks like, what it sounds like. It can be inspired from saints of old traditions, of different traditions, of a particular tradition that really resonates with you. So is it possible for you to create a couple of prayers, write them up on little cards or papers or post-its around your home, in your office, in your car? And would it be possible for you to create a prayer of gratitude so that you can have a vehicle to thank the divine for all of those things for which you are grateful? There are a few prayers that really inspire me. One is the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Another beautiful prayer that has inspired me since childhood is composed by Saint Francis of Assisi. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. O Divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive. It is in pardoning that we are pardoned. And it is in dying to self that we are born into eternal life. So one Buddhist prayer that is very beautiful and quite easy to tune into and to remember. May all beings be peaceful. May all beings be happy. May all beings be safe. May all beings awaken to the light of their true nature. May all beings be free. So prayer is really tapping into the unknown with our known. When the known and the unknown are united within us, our spirit is alive. It gives us the capacity to humbly tune into what the creative consciousness wants for us, the larger plan. Part of us can relax and surrender the ego to not my will, but thy will. We can relinquish the need to control, manipulate, or overplan and ease into the flow of spirit. And I really, really believe in the power of prayer as a service. The power of prayer, not just for ourselves, but for others. The power of prayer to relinquish attachment to outcome. The power of prayer to support us in accepting life exactly as it is, not to force upon it or to have expectations for it to be a particular way. When prayer becomes the frequency of the soul and the mind, and our emotion, and that means all the pain, all the sadness, all the grief, all the anger, all the trauma, all the drama is channeled into devotion. I fundamentally believe that we can create a miracle. When the mind is still and the prayer is projected with clarity, dedication, and humility, the prayer has power. So for me, when I'm going through a difficult time, prayer helps me to attune to the divine wisdom, to the divine hukam, to the divine order, to recognize that there is perhaps a wider plan, a bigger plan, a plan that I cannot see. And sometimes my prayer is a prayer of helping me to accept that that is indeed a possibility. And when I attune to that possibility, when I attune to that infinite wisdom, the infinite wisdom that goes beyond anything the finite mind would have me know, I have the potential to create a certain frequency. And when I generate that frequency, I create and have the potential to create impact on every thought, every feeling, and every action. And it's difficult sometimes for us to accept that every single thought is having an impact on the wider field, but it is. Which means that if I attune my energy, if I attune my frequency to a higher wisdom, to a wisdom that extends beyond anything the finite mind would have me know, then I am attuning to something much, much bigger than my much smaller emotions, feelings, attachments. I open myself up to the possibility of really moving and operating and acting from a holding that is much, much bigger than me. I want to be able to respond to the slightest prompting of grace so that I can become an instrument of grace. And my daily prayer is that nothing disturbs me or frightens me away from that commitment. The infinite doesn't change. God doesn't change. The divine is unchanging. So tuning into that infinite knowing, that infinite wisdom, gives me a lot of strength, a lot of attunement, and a lot of clarity in times when my mind wants to make sense of a situation that from the outset appears senseless. So my prayer is very often to trust in the infinite with all my heart and to surrender my doubting mind in all the ways that I acknowledge the wisdom, the higher wisdom, and really open up to the subtler realms and the messages derived from that so that I can experience the guidance that comes from that wisdom. And that guidance then moves me into action. And that action is hopefully coming from a place that is elevated, that is more whole, that is unbroken. This war in our region has shown us that we can be stripped of everything except our connection to the divine. Accepting that whatever is happening to any human being around the world is happening to me. Can I dare to see the divine in the ugliest and lowest expressions of humanity? Pain and love sit in the same space. The heart must be broken open. And we must find ways to build up the strength to hold up the pain. What if we're here on this earth for something greater? Does the war impact me because I'm called to act? Why is this shaking me up? And if God is for us, all is laid out for us, but we hardly grasp that opportunity. Life teaches us that we need the extremes to experience and know something different. If there was no suffering, we would not awaken to compassion. Fear brings us to faith. Crime teaches us forgiveness. Our spirit is vast. Truth is high, but truthful living is even higher. How can I ensure that my action comes from a place of wholeness? Whether we are humanitarians, yogis, or peace activists, we must honor our shared values of peace, compassion, and nonviolence. The killing of innocent lives, kidnapping of civilians, separation of families, displacement of people, and destruction of homes goes against these values. We continue to operate in a world that is ruled on so many levels by the laws of power, money, and territorialism, where the loss of innocent lives is a small price to pay for the expansion of political agendas, where even though violence doesn't solve issues, but only begets more violence, it continues to be used to gain power and control. So when it comes to prayer, it really is come as you are. You don't have to be pious. You don't have to be good. You don't even have to believe your prayer will work. Just do it. Hang in with it. There is an opportunity even in adversity. Is it possible to acknowledge the opportunity in adversity? What is this pain showing me? What is it that I am meant to see from this? How is it that I am being invited to upgrade, to polish, to shift, to change the various aspects of my life? How can I be better? Can I dare to accept the situation as it is? Can I dare to tune into something bigger than myself? Is it possible for me to institute pillars of support and regular practices that keep me attuned to that prayerful and peaceful part of me? Can I acknowledge that prayer is a service? That every thought, that every word, that every action is creating impact on the wider field, and that I have a responsibility to play my part? Can I acknowledge my part in the divine play? Sat Nam.